Baghdad International Airport, January 3, 2020, 0:56 local time. The desert wind cuts like a knife through the chain-link fence, carrying the faint stink of jet fuel and distant sewage. Inside a cracked concrete drainage pipe, half buried in sand and forgotten trash, a woman huddles motionless. Her black abaya blends into the shadows, swallowing her form until she's little more than a ghost. You can almost feel the chill seeping through the fabric, the rough concrete biting into her knees after hours of waiting. And no light, no sound except the low hum of approaching engines, and her own steady breaths, low, controlled, like a predator conserving energy. She doesn't flinch when the floodlights sweep the perimeter, illuminating the runway in harsh yellow pools. Her eyes, hidden behind the mesh of her niqab, stay fixed on the horizon. In her gloved hand, a pair of compact night vision binoculars, smuggled in pieces over months, assembled in a dingy hostel room under the cover of prayer calls. The world around her is a green-tinted haze, cargo planes taxiing, armed guards patrolling with Kalashnikovs slung low, their cigarettes glowing like fireflies. Then, the moment arrives. A distant roar builds, and Cam Wing's Flight 6Q501 from Damascus touches down with a screech of tires on tarmac. The woman known only as Leora, in the sterile halls of Mossad headquarters. But here, in this forsaken corner of Iraq, Zahra Husseini adjusts her focus. Her heart rate doesn't spike, drops. 42 beats per minute. She's trained for this, lived it in simulations under the Negev sun, where instructors screamed Farsi insults to break her concentration. The plane rolls to a stop near the ceremonial terminal, far from the commercial gates where civilians mill about. Armed men in dark fatigues form a loose perimeter as the stairs descend. First out, a cluster of bodyguards, eyes scanning the darkness like hawks. Then him, Qassem Soleimani, the architect of Iran's shadow wars, the man who armed Hezbollah, orchestrated bombings from Buenos Aires to Beirut, and turned Iraq into a graveyard for American soldiers. He steps onto the tarmac, kneels briefly to kiss the ground, a ritual of defiance, and straightens his crisp uniform jacket. At 62, he moves with the confidence of someone untouchable, his salt and pepper beard catching the light. Beside him, Abu Mahdi al-Mohandis, deputy commander of Iraq's popular mobilization units, embraces him like a brother. Laughter echoes faintly across the wind. The two men climb into the second black Toyota Land Cruiser, flanked by a convoy of armored SUVs. Engines rev. Lights pierce the night as they accelerate toward the airport exit. Leora Angel, as her handlers code her, whispers into the throat mic hidden beneath her collar. The device is no bigger than a grain of rice, powered by her body heat, transmitting an encrypted burst that bounces off a satellite before reaching Tel Aviv, and seconds later, a drone operator in Nevada. Both falcons in the nest, she breathes. Clear to engage. 47 seconds tick by. You can imagine the tension in that pipe, the sand shifting under her weight, the distant call of a muezzin from the city beyond. Then, without warning, the sky splits open. Two streaks of white fire arced from the heavens, silent at first, then exploding into the convoy with surgical precision. Hellfire are 9X missiles. The Flying Ginsu, they call them, in classified briefings, deploy their 6 razor-sharp blades. Mid-flight, shredding metal and flesh without a conventional blast. No collateral craters, just targeted annihilation. The lead vehicle erupts in flames, tires popping like gunfire. Soleimani's SUV crumples, windows shattering in a cascade of glass. Screams cut through the night, drowned by secondary explosions as fuel tanks ignite. Guards scramble from the wreckage, weapons raised at ghosts, but it's over. Soleimani and al-Mohandis are going to reduce to charred silhouettes amid the burning debris. Leora lowers the binoculars. She closes her eyes for exactly 3 heartbeats, murmuring a quiet prayer, Baruch Dayan Hemet. Blessed is the true judge. Then, as sirens wail in the distance and airport security floods the scene, she slips deeper into the pipe, beginning the crawl that will take her back into the labyrinth of Baghdad's streets. But how did a single woman, invisible and alone, become the eyes that guided those missiles? It started over a year earlier, in a windowless room in Tel Aviv, where the hunt for the untouchable general truly began, and where Leora's life was about to vanish into the shadows. October 11, 2018, 3:17 a.m., Glilit Junction, north of Tel Aviv Mossad headquarters. Sublevel 4. The aquarium. The room is lit only by the blue glow of wall-sized screens, satellite feeds, intercepted phone calls, thermal drone footage, and a single photograph dominate the center display. Soleimani in Damascus, laughing with Bashar al-Assad 2 nights earlier. He's wearing the same smug half-smile he's worn through 3 failed Mossad attempts on his life. At the head of the table stands the Prime Minister. Shirt sleeves rolled up, tie gone, eyes bloodshot from no sleep. Around him, the Mossad director, the IDF chief of staff, the head of Oman military intelligence, and a woman no one in the room has met before. She is 34, 5'6", in boots, hair cropped short and dyed dark for an operation that never happened. Her file is projected behind her, redacted, redacted, redacted. Then, a single line, calcine, angel clearance, Black Falcon. The Prime Minister doesn't waste words. 3 times we've missed him. Tehran now believes he is divinely protected. I want that myth ended, permanently. He turns to the woman. You speak Farsi like a native. You've lived in Damascus as one of them for 5 years. Can you get inside his circle in Iraq? Angel doesn't blink. I can get inside his morning coffee, sir. A ripple of uneasy laughter. The Mossad director slides a folder across the table. Inside, a death certificate already filled out in Arabic. Name Zahra Husseini. Cause of death, American airstrike, Mosul. 2016 marital status, widow of martyred PMU fighter, current residence, Karbala, Iraq. Your new life, he says. Memorize it. Then burn it. That night, in a safe house overlooking the Mediterranean, Angel sits alone on the balcony. She opens a small velvet box. Inside, her real Israeli passport, a photograph of her parents in Tehran 1986, and the Star of David necklace she has worn since her bat mitzvah. She kisses the necklace once, places everything in a metal bowl, pours gasoline, and strikes a match. The flames reflect in her eyes as her old life turns to ash. 3 days later, she crosses the Allenby Bridge into Jordan, wearing full niqab, carrying nothing in her luggage except a Quran, annotated in childish handwriting, and a cheap gold wedding band that belonged to a woman who died in Fallujah. By the time she reaches the Iraqi border, Zahra Husseini is real. Leora is gone. But becoming invisible is only the first step. Getting close enough to the world's most paranoid general to count the hairs in his beard. That would take 13 months of calculated madness. November 2018, December 042, Karbala, Iraq al-Makayam. Women's hostel. The hostel smells of boiled lentils, cheap detergent, and despair. 40 widows and divorced women sleep on thin mattresses in 2 long rows. Angel. Now Zahra claims the mattress closest to the door, the coldest spot in winter, hottest in summer. She wants to suffer. Suffering makes you believable. Every dawn, the loudspeaker crackles with the call to prayer. She is always first to the courtyard sink, washing in ice-cold water, while the others still snore. She never complains. She never asks for extra food. Within 2 weeks, the matron calls her Bint al-Balad, daughter of the country. She volunteers for every dirty job, scrubbing blood off stretchers at the PMU hospital in Codename, carrying amputee soldiers to the toilet when the orderlies are drunk, sitting with dying boys from Anbar while they whisper their mother's names. She learns to cry on command. Not the loud theatrical wailing expected of Iraqi widows. Quiet, choking sobs that make even hardened militiamen look away in shame. One night, a teenage fighter with half a face asks her to write a picture of his little sister. Zahra holds his hand until he dies at 3:14. She keeps the photograph. She will carry it for the rest of the mission. By spring 2019, she has become the woman you call when someone needs tea at 4 a.m., and no questions asked. Iranian advisors love her. She brings them cardamom coffee exactly the way they drank it in Mossad. She listens. She never writes anything down. Everything goes into the palace of memory she built in the Negev desert. A mental map of faces, phone numbers, license plates, favorite cigarettes, mistresses, fears. One evening in July, Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes himself visits the hospital to pin medals on the wounded. Zahra is pouring tea when he turns to her. You look familiar, sister. She lowers her eyes. Many widows look the same, Syed. He laughs and pats her shoulder. The touch burns like acid, but she smiles modestly. Mission milestone achieved. She is now inside the trusted circle. But trust is a slow poison. And Soleimani is still hundreds of kilometers away, moving like a shark between Damascus, Beirut, and Tehran. To reach him, she must become more than trusted. She must become indispensable. And that means volunteering for the one job no sane woman would take. Joining the female logistics team that services the Iranian advisory villas inside Baghdad's Green Zone. July 2019, 5:23 Baghdad Green Zone. Compound 7 Iranian advisory villas. The Green Zone hums with the false security of concrete blast walls and razor wire. American helicopters chop the air overhead, their shadows sweeping like vultures over the palm-lined streets. Inside Compound 7, a cluster of whitewashed villas reserved for Quds Force officers. The air conditioner rattles against the 48-degree heat. Zahra Husseini arrives at the gate with a basket of fresh dates and flatbread, her niqab damp with sweat. The guard, a young Iranian from Mossad, eyes heavy from night shift, waves her through without a pat-down. She is, after all, just the tea lady. The one who remembers how each general likes his samovar, black for the hardliners, sweet for the homesick. She pushes open the kitchen door of Villa 3, where the scent of rose water and tobacco clings to everything. 2 advisors are already up, murmuring over maps spread on the dining table. One is Colonel Reza Khani, Soleimani's point man for arming the PMU militias. The other, Major Alipour, logistics expert. The man who routes Soleimani's convoys through Iraq like threads in a spiderweb. Zahra sets down the tray silently, pouring from a brass pot with hands that never tremble. She lingers just long enough to catch fragments. The general arrives from Damascus next week. Airport pickup at midnight, ... No U.S. eyes on the route? You can picture her there, head bowed, ears like radar dishes. Every word etched into her memory palesa, mental fortress built during Mossad training, where each room holds a face, a phrase, a vulnerability. She doesn't write notes. Paper burns, but minds endure. As she wipes a spill from the table, her sleeve brushes Pour's briefcase. In that split-second contact, she slips a RFID beacon thinner, then a fingernail. Powered by ambient radio waves into the lining seam, he never notices. No one ever does. This is her new routine. Dawn arrivals, midnight departures. She scrubs floors stained with boot mud from the Syrian front. She mends uniforms torn in skirmishes with ISIS remnants. She listens to the wives visiting from Tehran on rare weekends dash complain about the dust, the drones, the fear of American strikes. One wife, Fatima, Soleimani's distant cousin, confides over mint tea. Qassem worries about the Jews more than the Yankees. He says they see everything. Zahra nods sympathetically, her blue eyes hidden behind brown contacts. Inside, she smiles. If only you knew, she thinks. But the Green Zone is a pressure cooker. Checkpoints every 50 meters. Random searches by Iraqi special forces trained by the CIA, one slip or wrong accent, a forgotten prayer verse, and it's over. In August, during a heat wave that kills 12 people in Baghdad, Zahra falls ill from contaminated water. Fever spikes to 40 degrees. She hallucinates her parents in Tehran, the Ayatollah's posters on every wall. She could signal for extraction, a specific phrase in her weekly encrypted burst to Tel Aviv, hidden in a prayer app on a burner phone buried under her mattress. But she doesn't. She sweats it out alone, whispering Hebrew psalms under her breath like incantations. By September, she's back, thinner, harder, with shadows under her eyes that make her legend even more convincing. Her breakthroughs come in waves. In October, she plants audio bugs in the Villa air vents devices, disguised as dead insects, activated by voice patterns matching Soleimani's timbre. Transmissions beam to a Mossad relay in Kurdistan, then to headquarters. In November, she photographs convoy schedules with a camera hidden in her wedding band, the lens a pinprick sapphire. Each risk builds the web, Shushan boys at the airport gates texting plate numbers. A Christian cabbie in Karada, ferrying officers and relaying routes. A gynecologist in Mansour extracting secrets from officers' wives during checkups. Soleimani himself remains a ghost. He slips into Iraq like smoke private jets, decoy convoys, nights in fortified basements. But Zara gets glimpses. One December evening, as she delivers supplies to Villa 5, she hears his voice through a cracked door, gravelly, commanding, discussing Hezbollah's shipments. She freezes in the hallway, heart slamming against her ribs. This is him. The man who orchestrated the deaths of hundreds of Israelis, who turned Yemen and Lebanon into proxy battlegrounds. Could end it in a ricin, in the tea, a knife from the kitchen. But orders are clear, intelligence first. The Americans must pull the trigger. Plausible deniability is Israel's sharpest weapon. As 2019 fades into protests and chaos, Baghdadis storming the streets against Iranian influence, Era senses the net tightening. Soleimani plans a bold move, a commercial flight into Baghdad. A show of defiance amid U.S. threats. She learns of it 72 hours early, carrying his favorite of Oz dates onto the plane as a pilgrim's gift. The beacon in Almohandis's briefcase pings active. Everything aligns. But on the eve of the flight, doubt creeps in. Alone in her hostel, staring at the ceiling cracks that look like maps of the Middle East, she wonders, what if the missiles miss? What if he survives again, stronger, a martyr in waiting? January 2nd, 2023, 14, Codename Hostel, Baghdad. The hostel is quieter than usual. Protests have emptied the streets, leaving only the occasional wail of sirens and the crackle of distant gunfire. Zara Husseini lies on her mattress, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles in the humid air. Her burner phone, disguised as a Quran app, vibrates once under her pillow. A single encrypted burst from Tel Aviv, Falcon inbound Damascus. Flight 6, Q501. Landfall, Baghdad 040. Confirmed nest. She exhales slowly. This is it. The culmination of 13 months. The beacon in Almohandis's briefcase. The audio bugs in the Villa vents, the network of shoeshine boys, taxi drivers, wives, whispers, all converging on one man. Soleimani, the Shadow Emperor who has evaded death 3 times, will land in Baghdad tonight. Not in a military jet shrouded by decoys, but commercial. A deliberate taunt to the Americans, who have just designated the IRGC a terrorist organization and threatened his life. Zara rises silently, slipping into her abaya. The other women stir faintly but don't wake. She has become part of the furniture here, the quiet widow who prays 5 times a day and never causes trouble. Outside, the night is thick with fog rolling off the Tigris. She walks the 2 kilometers to the airport perimeter, avoiding patrols by hugging the shadows of abandoned warehouses. Her destination, the drainage pipe, her vigil site, stocked with water, dates, the throat mic charged by a solar patch sewn into her sleeve. You can feel the weight of that walk, the crunch of gravel under her bare feet. Shoes are for the elite. The distant boom of artillery from Sadr City, the metallic temps of fear on her tongue. Every step is a calculation. Avoid the IRGC checkpoint at the bridge. Time the guard rotation at the fence. Blend into the stray dogs scavenging trash. By 012, she is in position. Curled in the pipe's mouth, binoculars ready, beacon receiver humming against her wrist like a second pulse. 038, the plane descends, lights piercing the haze. Zara's binoculars track it to the tarmac. Guards swarm. Stairs deploy with a hydraulic hiss. Soleimani emerges first, uniform crisp, despite the flight. He pauses at the bottom step, inhaling the Iraqi air like a conqueror claiming territory. Almohandis waits in the lead SUV, briefcase in hand, the one with the beacon Zara planted months ago, now pinging a silent signal to the heavens. Embrace. Brief words exchanged. Zara catches fragments on the wind. The Americans are bluffing. Hezbollah is ready. The convoy forms 3 SUVs, armed escorts on motorcycles. Engines growl. Headlights sweep the darkness as they accelerate toward the exit road. Their thumb hovers over the mic switch. This is the precipice. One wrong word, one jammed signal, and the missiles go blind. She thinks of the briefings, the R9X Hellfires. Designed by Lockheed Martin, but modified for 0 forensics blades only. No explosives, no traceable shrapnel. America will claim the strike. Israel will smile in silence. 056. Her voice is a feather in the ether, both falcons in the nest. clear to engage. The wait is agony. 47 seconds stretch like hours. Sirens wail faintly from the city. A guard's flashlight beam dances nearby, missing her by meters. Then the sky ignites. Twin streaks from an invisible drone high above, slicing the night. Impact is surgical. The lead SUV crumples like foil, flames blooming orange against black. Soleimani's vehicle spins, roof peeling back, windows vaporizing in a shower of glass. No screams reach her ears, only the roar of fire and twisting metal. She lowers the binoculars. Her hands don't shake. She counts to 3, eyes closed, then whispers the ancient Hebrew affirmation of fate. As chaos erupts, guards firing wildly into the dark, ambulances racing from the terminal, Zara begins her extraction crawl, deeper into the shadows. But survival is the true test. Baghdad will burn with rage tomorrow. Checkpoints will multiply. And one woman, carrying the weight of a nation's secrets, must vanish before the dawn breaks. January 3, 2021, 17 Baghdad International Airport perimeter. The sky is still orange from burning fuel when Zara crawls out the far end of the drainage pipe. Her abaya is soaked with sweat and diesel fumes, but she does not run. Running attracts eyes. Instead, she walks, slow and broken, like every other widow in Iraq, back toward the city. Behind her, the airport is a madhouse. Helicopters thundering overhead, militiamen screaming into radios. Someone already shouting that the Americans did it. No one looks twice at the limping woman clutching a plastic bag of bread crusts. She reaches the hostel at 4:11. The matron is awake, weeping in the courtyard. They killed the general, she sobs. Zara drops to her knees and begins to wail, loud, guttural, exactly the way southern Iraqi women mourn. She tears at her hair, smears dust on her face, cuts her forehead with a small blade hidden in her sleeve, just enough blood to look authentic. Within minutes, every woman in the hostel is beating her chest in rhythm. Zara is in the center, crying hardest. Perfect camouflage. For the next 9 days, she never leaves the morning rituals.
Ow.
She joins the black-clad rivers of women marching from Codename to the Tigris. She beats her chest until bruises bloom purple across her ribs. She sleeps in the streets when the crowds swell too large for buses. She eats only dates and water, like the most pious mourners. At night, she transmits short encrypted bursts from public toilets, using the chaos of millions of phones as cover for her signal. Tel Aviv answers only once: stay dark, do not extract. Legend must survive funeral. January 7th, Tehran Square, Baghdad, the official funeral procession. 3 million people packed shoulder to shoulder, black flags snapping in the wind. Zara is in the women's section, pressed so tightly she can barely breathe. Overhead, Iranian TV drones circle like vultures. She keeps her eyes down, but her peripheral vision catches everything. The coffin draped in the IRGC flag. The Supreme Leader's envoy weeping theatrically, the furious chants of death to America, death to Israel. She mouths the words perfectly. No one notices the tiny smile that flickers for half a second when the crowd screams Israel's name. January 9th, Karbala, the final 40-kilometer march to the Holy City. Zara walks barefoot the entire way, soles bleeding, legs swollen, face sunburned black. She carries a portrait of Soleimani someone thrust into her hands. Every checkpoint waves the mourners through without search. Who would suspect a woman who has flagellated herself raw? Only on the night of January 12th, when the crowds finally thin and the world media have gone home, does she slip away. She boards a night bus south to Basra with nothing but the clothes on her back and a small Quran containing a micro SD card sewn into the spine. At the Shat Al Arab waterway, a fishing dhow is waiting exactly where the Druze captain promised. She collapses into the bottom of the boat, finally allowing herself one shuddering breath that is half sob, half laughter. 40 miles offshore, in international waters, the running lights of an Israeli SAR-6 corvette blink twice. A Zodiac races across the black water. Strong hands pull her aboard. The captain, a man who lost his brother to a Soleimani rocket in 2006, salutes her silently. She salutes back, the first military gesture she has made in 411 days. January 14th to 2nd, 40 Haifa Naval Base, Israel. She steps onto Israeli soil wearing borrowed jeans and a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Her hair is still cropped short under the hijab, her face gaunt, her eyes ancient. Waiting on the pier is the Mossad director and a female psychologist who has flown in from Tel Aviv. The director opens his mouth to speak. She raises one hand, stops him, and says only 4 words in Hebrew, "Tell them it's done." Then she walks past them, toward the waiting car, leaving wet footprints on the concrete. Footprints that steam in the cold Mediterranean night like the last breath of a ghost finally laid to rest. But some ghosts never rest. Some angels simply change their wings. January 14th, 2020, 5:30, undisclosed rehabilitation facility. Northern Israel. The room has no windows, only soft light and the faint smell of eucalyptus from the hills outside. Leora sits on the edge of a narrow bed, barefoot, wearing hospital scrubs. A doctor tries to take her blood pressure. She lets him, but her pulse stays at 41 beats per minute. The doctor mutters something about impossible physiology. She almost smiles. They offer her steak, wine, chocolate. She asks for plain yogurt and bread. They bring her family photographs. She looks at them for a long time, then slides them back across the table without a word. Some doors, once closed for 13 months, do not open easily again. They ask if she wants to debrief. She says later. They ask if she wants to see the Prime Minister. Says no. They ask what she does want. She answers, a shower that lasts an hour and a bed without cockroaches. She gets both. 3 weeks later, she disappears from the facility. No record of discharge, no CCTV footage of her leaving. Just an empty room and a single line written in Farsi on the bathroom mirror with soap. I was never here. The file is sealed at the highest level. Even the Americans, who took public credit for the strike and still believe their own SIGINT was decisive, are quietly told a cover story about a lucky satellite pass. Only 8 people on Earth know the full truth, and 5 of them will carry it to their graves. Last confirmed trace, March 11th, 2022. A grainy satellite frame from Plaza San Martin, Buenos Aires. A woman in sunglasses sits on a park bench feeding pigeons. Same cheekbones, same posture, weight perfectly balanced on the balls of feet ready to move. Same ice blue eyes when the sun catches them for half a second. The analyst who spots the image marks it possible match and sends it up the chain. By the time anyone looks again, the bench is empty. Today, somewhere in the world, another target breathes easier because he believes his security is perfect. He has bodyguards, jammers, decoy convoys, and the arrogance of a man who has survived too long. He does not know that in a quiet apartment, or a mountain village, or a crowded market, a woman with no name is already learning how he takes his tea. Some angels lose their wings. Others simply trade them for an abaya and 13 months of perfect silence. And when the moment comes, when the sky lights up white and the untouchable fall, no one will ever know that a woman once stood in the dark and whispered clear to engage. For the men and women who become ghosts, so the rest of us can live in the light. We will never know your names.
Thank you.